Okay, for those of you who are struggling a little bit with scientific notation, let's talk about that. Let's talk about scientific notation. When we put a number in scientific notation, it's important to note that all numbers in the significant are significant digits. Every single digit. This right here, the thing you're multiplying by 10, is the significand, and all of those digits are significant. If you have a 0 that isn't significant, then you don't include it in your significand. Okay? So, rules for putting numbers in significant digits. In scientific notation, sorry. If the number is greater than 10, that means your exponent on the 10 is positive. If the number is less than 1, then your exponent will be negative. Okay. If it's between 1 and 10, if you have a number like 8, then there's really no reason to put it in scientific notation. You can, your exponent would then be 0, 10 to the 0, but in science, we generally don't. You can. The base always has one digit before the decimal. You always have one digit before the decimal. Okay? So let's look at how we do this. If we want to put this number in scientific notation, then we're going to have to move the decimal from where it is to where it should be for scientific notation. 1, 2, 3 places. So my significand would be 2.341. I'm going to say times 10 to the, I know it's going to be positive because my number was greater than 10. And I had to move my decimal 3 places, so it's going to be a positive 3. Same thing here. I want to move my decimal so it's just behind the very first number. 1, 2 places. So 5.6378 times 10 is positive, and I moved it 2 places, so it's going to be positive 2. For a number like 300, these zeros are not significant zeros. So I don't need to include them in my significand. I can just say 3. I would have to move my decimal 3 places times 10. I had to move my decimal 2 places, so 10 to the 2 to the second power. Here I've got some numbers that are smaller than 1, so I'm going to be moving my decimal in the opposite direction, which means that my exponent is going to start being negative. Here I've got to move my decimal 1, 2, 3 places, so I'm going to have 3.20. This is a trailing 0 with a decimal, so it's significant and I need to include it, times 10 to the 1, 2, 3, negative 3. Here I'm going to move my decimal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places. So I'm going to have 7.2803 times 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to the negative 5. Here, I'm going to move my decimal 1, 2, 3 places. So 4.67 times 10 to the negative 3. Here I have a big number again, larger than 1. I'm going to have to move my decimal a lot. From here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 places. So I'm going to say 3.8426 times 10 to the 9th. I did not include these zeros because they are not significant. They're trailing. There was no decimal before I wrote it in there. There was no decimal before I wrote it in blue. So these zeros are not significant and I do not need to include them. Here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places I need to move that decimal. 5.6 times 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to the negative fifth. Okay, what if I already have something in scientific notation though, and I want to write it in standard form? I want to take it out of scientific notation. Well, if the exponent is positive, that tells me that I need to move my decimal to the right. If my exponent is negative, that tells me I need to move my decimal to the left. Okay, so let's practice. Here I've got a positive exponent. That means my number should end up being greater than 1. I'm going to move my decimal 5 places to the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here my exponent is negative, so I'm going to move my decimal to the left 2 places. 1, 2, and then I'm going to continue on with the rest of my number. You see that I went 1, 2, so I needed to add a 0 right there. Here my exponent is positive, so I'm going to move my decimal to the right 7 places. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to need to add 3 extra zeros here. 1, 2. Okay, same thing here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4 extra zeros. These zeros were not significant, so they weren't included here in my significand, but they were part of they are placeholders when I take it out of scientific notation. Here I still have 5.08, but now I have a negative exponent, so I need to move my decimal the other way. 1, 2, 3, 4 places, so I'm going to need to put 3 zeros in front of that 5. 1, 2, 3. You can put the 0 in front of the decimal if you want, that's fine. Sometimes you have a number like this. You could have had this 4.8901 just times 10 to the 2. So then we would have moved the decimal 2 places, and we would have still had a decimal number once we took it out of scientific notation. Okay, so that's all there is to scientific notation.